99% of you are not subscribed to the channel. At 1,000 subscribers, I will post a series of special stories. Subscribe now.
Gaia 7 was once a beacon of hope for humanity, a symbol of Earth's ambitious colonization efforts on the fringes of known space. The colony had been established with the best technology Earth had to offer, a shining example of human ingenuity and determination. But that was years ago. Now, Gaia 7 was little more than a ghost town, a decaying relic of a dream gone wrong. The colony had been struck by a virulent plague that swept through the population with ruthless efficiency. It started slowly with a few cases of unexplained illness, but within weeks the entire colony was in the grip of an unstoppable epidemic. The desperate calls for help from Earth were met with silence, as Gaia 7's remote location and the chaos back on the home planet made a rescue mission impossible. The colony was left to fend for itself, and in the end, most of the inhabitants either succumbed to the disease or abandoned the settlement, leaving it to rot under the harsh light of its distant sun. Amidst this desolation, a young girl named Lyra was all that remained of her family, and as far as she knew, the only human left on Gaia 7. She was just 10 years old when the plague took her parents, renowned scientists who had been sent to the colony to conduct critical research on its unique environment. With no one left to care for her, Lyra had been forced to grow up quickly, learning to navigate the empty streets and derelict buildings that had once housed hundreds of people. Gaia 7 was eerily silent now, the only sounds coming from the howling wind that swept through the empty corridors and the occasional creak of metal structures as they shifted in the breeze. Despite the loneliness, Lyra had adapted to her new life, finding solace in the remnants of the colony's AI systems. These artificial intelligences, though mostly malfunctioning and unreliable, were her only companions. They provided her with the basic necessities: food from the automated hydroponic gardens, warmth from the still-functioning thermal generators, and occasionally a voice to talk to. Lyra spent her days exploring the abandoned colony, mapping out its every corner and discovering hidden nooks and crannies where she could find supplies or interesting artifacts left behind by the former inhabitants. She was resourceful and clever, with a sharp mind that had inherited her parents' scientific curiosity. She read the data logs stored in the colony's central computer, trying to piece together what had gone wrong, but much of the information was corrupted or incomplete. Her favorite place in the colony was the observatory. Perched on a hill overlooking the main settlement, the observatory was where her parents had spent most of their time studying the stars and the strange phenomena of Gaia 7's skies. Lyra often climbed up there to watch the twin suns set, casting the landscape in hues of red and gold. At night, the sky was filled with unfamiliar constellations, a reminder that she was far, far from Earth. One evening, as she made her way back from the observatory, Lyra noticed something unusual: a faint pulsing light in the distance, near the outskirts of the colony where she rarely ventured. Her heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. It had been so long since anything out of the ordinary had happened. She knew every inch of the colony, and this light was something new. Curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to investigate. The journey to the outskirts was longer than she remembered, and the terrain became more treacherous as she left the safety of the main colony. Buildings were more dilapidated here, with collapsed roofs and walls covered in vines. The light grew brighter as she approached, emanating from what appeared to be a large metallic object partially buried in the ground. As she got closer, Lyra's breath caught in her throat. It was a ship, unlike anything she had ever seen. The design was sleek and alien, with smooth curved surfaces that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. It looked as though it had crash-landed long ago, but the strange light pulsing from within suggested that it was still active. Lyra hesitated at the entrance, her instincts telling her to turn back. But something about the ship drew her in, an inexplicable urge to see what was inside. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the dark, narrow corridor that led into the heart of the ship. The interior was dimly lit, with only the occasional flicker of light from panels embedded in the walls. The air was thick and stale, but there was a strange warmth that made her skin prickle. As she moved deeper into the ship, the sense of unease grew. The walls were covered in symbols and markings she couldn't decipher, glowing faintly as she passed. Her footsteps echoed ominously in the silence. Eventually, she reached a large chamber at the center of the ship. In the middle of the room stood a strange cylindrical pod, about twice her height. It was made of a material she didn't recognize, smooth and cold to the touch. As she examined the pod, She noticed a panel on its side with buttons and a screen displaying unfamiliar characters. She reached out to touch it, and suddenly, the pod began to hum with energy. Lyra jumped back as the pod's surface shifted, glowing brighter and emitting a low, vibrating sound. She watched in awe as the front of the pod slowly opened with a hiss, releasing a cloud of cold mist. From within the fog, a massive figure began to emerge. At first, she could only see a silhouette, but as the mist cleared, the figure became more distinct. It was a creature, unlike anything she had ever encountered. A towering, muscular being with scales that gleamed under the dim lights. Its head was reptilian, with a long snout and sharp teeth that glistened ominously. It had powerful limbs ending in razor-sharp claws and eyes that glowed a fiery red. Lyra froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The creature stepped out of the pod, its gaze locking onto hers. Time seemed to stand still as they stared at each other, Lyra's mind racing with fear and fascination. The creature took a step toward her, its movements slow and deliberate as if assessing her. She should have been terrified, but instead she felt a strange sense of calm. Her fear melted away, replaced by an overwhelming curiosity. Without thinking, she reached out her hand toward the creature. It paused, tilting its head slightly as if trying to understand her gesture. To her amazement, the creature lowered its head, allowing her hand to touch its rough, scaled skin. The moment her fingers made contact, the creature let out a low, rumbling growl, a sound that seemed more contented than threatening. Lyra felt a strange connection, an inexplicable bond with this alien being that defied all logic. She had done the unthinkable. She had petted an alien predator. As the last rays of the setting sun vanished beyond the horizon, casting the colony into darkness, Lyra realized that her life had just changed forever. In that abandoned, forgotten place, a new chapter was beginning, one that would take her far beyond the desolate ruins of Gaia 7 and into the vast, unknown reaches of the galaxy. The silence inside the alien ship was thick, almost oppressive, as Lyra's hand rested on the scaled skin of the creature before her. The predator, a being of immense power and ferocity, stood still, allowing her touch. Its red eyes, glowing like embers in the dim light, bore into hers, filled with an intelligence she hadn't expected. Lyra had always been brave, but this was something entirely different. She could feel the creature's strength beneath her fingers, the power coiled within its massive frame, yet there was a gentleness in the way it responded to her. The moment stretched, feeling like an eternity, until the predator finally moved, shifting slightly to the side, its posture less tense, as though accepting her presence. The chamber around them was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of the ship's systems, which seemed to be slowly coming back to life after years of dormancy. The pod from which the predator had emerged was now silent, its purpose fulfilled, and the lights in the chamber flickered intermittently, casting long, shifting shadows on the walls. Lyra, still in a daze from the surreal encounter, slowly withdrew her hand. The predator watched her intently, but made no move to follow or threaten her. Instead, it seemed to be studying her, as if trying to understand what she was and why she had approached it without fear. She took a cautious step back, her mind racing. What was she supposed to do now? The creature was clearly dangerous. Its very presence radiated an aura of lethal potential. But it hadn't harmed her. In fact, it seemed almost docile. It was as if her touch had calmed it, connecting them in a way that she couldn't fully comprehend. Before she could dwell on it further, the predator made a low, rumbling sound deep in its chest, a noise that sent a shiver down her spine. But rather than threatening, it seemed more like a form of communication. Lyra wondered if it was trying to speak to her, in its own way. Taking a deep breath, she decided to see how far this strange connection would go. "Can you understand me?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. The predator didn't respond verbally, of course, but it tilted its head again, the way a curious animal might. Encouraged, Lyra continued, "I'm Lyra. I don't know if you can understand me, but I don't want to hurt you. And I don't think you want to hurt me either, do you?" The predator remained silent, but there was something in its eyes, an awareness, a recognition that surprised her. It seemed to be listening, comprehending in a way that was unsettlingly human. As Lyra tried to make sense of what was happening, a soft beep echoed through the chamber, followed by a series of clicks and mechanical whirs. The ship, dormant for so long, was waking up, systems reactivating one by one. Lights flickered on, illuminating the room more fully, and the walls vibrated as the ship's power surged back to life. The sudden activity startled Lyra, and she took a step closer to the predator instinctively, seeking the strange comfort she had found in its presence. The creature didn't react aggressively. Instead, it moved slightly, positioning itself between her and the rest of the room, almost as if it were shielding her from potential danger. Suddenly, the floor beneath them trembled, and Lyra felt a deep rumble that resonated through her bones. The ship was coming alive in more ways than one, and it wasn't just a simple power-up. Something was happening, something big. Without warning, a panel on the far wall slid open, revealing a small alcove filled with complex alien machinery. The room's atmosphere grew tense, as if the very air had thickened with anticipation. Lyra could feel the predator's muscles tense beside her, its eyes narrowing as it assessed the situation. A low, rhythmic hum filled the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, the sound vibrating through her very being. She turned to the predator, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's happening?" As if in answer, a holographic display suddenly materialized in front of them, filled with alien symbols and data streams. Lyra's limited understanding of the alien technology left her struggling to make sense of it, but she could tell that the ship was sending out some kind of signal, a beacon perhaps. The predator growled softly, a sound of unease. It seemed to understand the implications of what was happening far better than Lyra did. The ship wasn't just waking up, it was calling out, reaching across the void of space for someone or something to respond. Lyra's eyes widened as realization hit her. This ship had crashed here long ago, and now it was trying to reconnect with its origins. It was possible that whoever, or whatever, had sent the predator to Gaia 7 was on their way, drawn by the signal. The thought sent a chill down her spine. If they were coming, what would they do when they found her here with their creature? Would they see her as an intruder, a threat? Or worse, what if they saw her as nothing more than prey? Panic began to set in, but before it could overwhelm her, the predator did something that shocked her. It nudged her gently with its massive head, as if urging her to move. Lyra stumbled backward, momentarily confused, but the predator repeated the gesture, this time more insistently. It wanted her to leave the chamber, to get away from whatever was about to happen. But Lyra wasn't sure she could just walk away. The predator wasn't just a mindless beast. It had shown signs of intelligence, of understanding, and now it was trying to protect her. If she left, she might never see it again, and the thought of abandoning this strange connection felt wrong. Before she could make a decision, the hum reached a crescendo, and the ship's systems flared with light. The signal was broadcasting at full power now, and there was no turning back. The air crackled with energy, and Lyra could almost feel the weight of the universe pressing down on her. She had to choose, stay with the predator and face whatever was coming, or flee and hope to survive in the ruins of Gaia 7. Lyra's mind raced, but in the end, her heart made the decision for her. She couldn't abandon the creature. Not after everything. With a resolve that surprised even herself, she stepped closer to the predator, placing a hand on its side once more. "I'm staying," she whispered, more to herself than to the creature. "I'm not leaving you." The predator let out a low rumbling sound that might have been approval. Together they stood in the center of the chamber, facing the unknown as the ship's systems roared to life around them. Outside the ship, high in the night sky above Gaia 7, stars began to shimmer and shift, as something vast and powerful responded to the call. Far beyond the desolate horizon of Gaia 7, deep in the heart of the Varelian Empire, the signal from the ancient ship reached its destination. The Varelians were a formidable species, tall, slender, and adorned with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with their emotions and thoughts. Their society was built on a foundation of advanced technology and strict hierarchy, with a singular focus on maintaining order and control throughout their domain. When the distress signal from Gaia 7 was detected, it immediately triggered an alert within the highest echelons of Varelian command. The signal bore the unique code of a lost asset, a bioengineered predator designed for hunting and survival in the most extreme environments. This predator, known as Zyrex, had been presumed lost along with its ship many cycles ago during a classified mission on the fringes of their empire. The Varelians, who prided themselves on precision and efficiency, were both intrigued and alarmed by the sudden reappearance of their long-missing creation. In the cold, sterile chambers of the Varelian High Council, the signal was analyzed, decrypted, and cross-referenced with their ancient records. The discovery that their predator had been awakened by an unknown entity on a forgotten human colony was cause for great concern. The Varelians, ever wary of potential threats, viewed humanity as a species to be carefully monitored, primitive yet unpredictable. Within hours of receiving the signal, the Council dispatched a scouting party to Gaia 7. The mission was clear: recover the Predator, eliminate any potential threats, and contain any information that could expose the Varelians' involvement in this forgotten corner of the galaxy. Lyra had no idea that the signal they had unwittingly activated was drawing the attention of a powerful alien race. She remained with the Predator, whom she had come to call Zyrex, unaware of the impending arrival of the Varelians. The days passed in a tense but peaceful rhythm as Lyra and Zyrex explored the ancient ship together. The bond between them grew stronger, forged in the quiet moments where Zyrex protected her from the unknown dangers lurking in the ship's shadowy corridors. The ship itself was a marvel of alien engineering, with technology far beyond Lyra's understanding. As she explored its labyrinthine interior, she discovered rooms filled with strange machinery, glowing consoles that displayed alien data, and other pods similar to the one Zyrex had emerged from, though these were either empty or malfunctioning. It was clear that this ship had been designed for a specific purpose, but what that purpose was remained a mystery. Despite the ever-present tension, Lyra found a strange sense of peace with Zyrex. The Predator, though fearsome in appearance, was gentle with her, responding to her words and gestures in a way that made her feel safe. She realized that Zyrex was far more intelligent than she had initially thought, capable of understanding complex commands and even learning from her. But as days turned into weeks, Lyra began to notice subtle changes in the environment around the ship. The temperature outside fluctuated unnaturally, and strange lights flickered on the horizon at night. It was as if the very planet was responding to the ship's presence, or perhaps to the signal that had been sent. Then, one evening, as Lyra and Zyrex were resting in the ship's main chamber, the lights inside flickered and dimmed. A low, ominous hum reverberated through the ship, causing Zyrex to stand up abruptly, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Lyra could feel the tension radiating from him. Something was wrong. Before she could ask what was happening, the ship's system sprang to life in a flurry of activity. Holographic displays lit up, showing streams of alien data that Lyra couldn't interpret, but she didn't need to understand the language to know that something, or someone, was approaching. Zyrex growled, a deep rumbling sound that filled the chamber. He turned toward the entrance of the ship, his entire body tense and ready for action. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she watched him, fear and adrenaline surging through her veins. Suddenly, the ship's main entrance sealed shut with a loud clang, trapping them inside. Lyra gasped, her mind racing with panic. Why would the ship lock them in? What was it trying to protect them from? The answer came in the form of a loud, thunderous boom that echoed through the walls, followed by a blinding flash of light outside. The ground trembled beneath them, and Lyra stumbled, barely catching herself before falling. Zyrex moved to her side, his growl deepening as he faced the sealed entrance, ready to confront whatever was outside. Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. The ship's signal. It must have attracted someone or something to Gaia 7. But who? And why? She didn't have to wait long for answers. The ship's systems, responding to the external threat, displayed a series of symbols that Lyra had come to recognize. Varelian script. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The Varelians, a species she had only heard about in whispers and fragments of data logs, were here. But why? What did they want with Zyrex? And more importantly, what would they do when they found her? As if in response to her thoughts, the ship's walls shimmered, and a holographic image of a Varelian appeared in front of them. The figure was tall and elegant, with bioluminescent patterns pulsing across its translucent skin. It spoke in a calm, emotionless voice, the Varelian language incomprehensible to Lyra. Zyrex snarled at the image, his body coiled like a spring, ready to strike, but the Varelian hologram merely observed them, its glowing eyes devoid of any warmth. Lyra could feel the weight of its gaze, like a scientist examining a specimen in a lab. Then, with a wave of its hand, the hologram disappeared, and the entrance to the ship slowly began to open, revealing the outside world once more. But it was no longer the familiar landscape of Gaia 7. Instead, the ship was surrounded by towering, insect-like Varelian craft, their sleek bodies gleaming under the pale light of the twin suns. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as she realized they were completely surrounded. Varelian soldiers, clad in bioorganic armor, stood in a semicircle around the entrance, their weapons trained on the ship. These were not ordinary foot soldiers. These were elite operatives, trained for the most dangerous missions in the galaxy. Zyrex moved to shield Lyra, positioning himself between her and the Varelians, his growls becoming louder and more menacing. The Varelians, however, did not react to his display of aggression. Instead, one of them stepped forward, its bioluminescent patterns shifting in a complex display that Lyra instinctively understood as communication. The Varelian raised a hand and a soft melodic tone filled the air. Zyrex stiffened, his growls faltering as if the sound was affecting him. Lyra grabbed his arm, desperate to keep him from losing control. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't let them control you." But Zyrex's eyes, once full of fire, were now clouded, his body trembling as if fighting an internal battle. The tone grew louder, more insistent, and Lyra could see the pain etched in Zyrex's features. He was losing the fight. Desperation clawed at her as she realized what the Varelians were doing. They were trying to reassert control over Zyrex, using some form of sonic manipulation to subdue him. She couldn't let that happen. She had to find a way to break the Varelians' hold over him. Acting on pure instinct, Lyra pressed her hand against Zyrex's side, focusing all her energy on the connection they had built. She could feel the bond between them, a thread of understanding and trust that had grown stronger with each passing day. She had to strengthen that bond, to anchor Zyrex to her and keep him from falling under the Varelians' control. "Zyrex, look at me," she shouted, her voice cutting through the tone. "You're stronger than this. Fight it." For a moment it seemed hopeless. Zyrex's eyes were distant, his body locked in a battle of wills with the Varelians. But then, slowly, his gaze shifted to meet hers. The tone faltered, and she saw a spark of recognition in his eyes. Lyra held onto that spark with everything she had. "You're not their weapon. You're my friend. You don't have to obey them. Stay with me, Zyrex, please." Her words seemed to reach him, and the tension in his body began to ease. The Varelians, sensing this shift, increased the intensity of the tone, but Lyra didn't back down. She kept talking, her voice steady and filled with determination. "You're not alone," she said softly. "We're in this together." With a final defiant roar, Zyrex broke free from the Varelians' control. The tone abruptly ceased, and the Varelians stepped back, clearly surprised by the failure of their tactics. Lyra could hardly believe it. Zyrex had fought off their influence. The bond between them had held strong, even against the advanced technology of the Varelians. But their victory was short-lived. The Varelian who had been leading the operation stepped forward again, this time speaking directly to Lyra. The words were unfamiliar, but the intent was clear. They were issuing an ultimatum. Lyra could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on her. They wanted Zyrex. They had come to reclaim their creation, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get him back. But she couldn't let them take him, not after everything they had been through together. She glanced at Zyrex, who was standing by her side, his gaze unwavering. They had formed a bond that went beyond mere survival. It was something deeper, something the Varelians couldn't understand. Taking a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward, meeting the Varelian leader's gaze with all the courage she could muster. "I won't let you take him," she said firmly. "He's not just a weapon. He's not yours to control anymore." The Varelians hesitated, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in what Lyra assumed was surprise or confusion. They hadn't expected resistance from a lone human girl. But Lyra wasn't just any human. She had survived on a forgotten colony, formed a bond with a creature designed for destruction, and now she was ready to fight for that bond. The Varelian leader raised a hand, signaling the soldiers to stand down. For a moment it seemed as though they might retreat, but then the leader spoke again, the tone of the voice shifting to something more conciliatory. Lyra couldn't understand the words, but she could sense the change in the atmosphere. The Varelians weren't retreating, but they weren't attacking either. They were negotiating. The realization stunned her. The Varelians, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, were trying to negotiate with her. They had recognized the strength of her bond with Zyrex and were reconsidering their approach. After a tense moment, the Varelian leader motioned to one of the soldiers, who stepped forward and placed a small glowing device on the ground between them. The leader spoke again, and this time the device translated the words into a language Lyra could understand. "You have demonstrated an unexpected connection with our creation," the translated voice said. "We wish to understand this bond. You will come with us, both of you." Lyra's heart raced. They were offering a truce of sorts. They wanted to study her and Zyrex, to understand how a human could have formed such a connection with one of their most dangerous assets. It wasn't exactly freedom, But it wasn't outright captivity either. She turned to Zyrex, searching his eyes for guidance. He seemed calm, as if waiting for her decision. The Varelians weren't giving them much of a choice, but Lyra knew this might be their best chance to stay together, and to survive. Finally, she nodded. "We'll go with you, but you have to promise that you won't hurt him, or me." The Varelian leader considered her words for a moment, then nodded in agreement. The soldiers lowered their weapons and the atmosphere grew less tense, though still charged with the gravity of the situation. As the Varelians prepared to transport them aboard their ship, Lyra felt a mix of fear and determination. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she and Zyrex would face it together. Their bond had defied expectations, and now it was leading them into uncharted territory, a place where they might find answers, or perhaps even a new beginning. With a final look at the desolate landscape of Gaia 7, Lyra took Zyrex's hand, and together, they stepped into the unknown. The Varelian ship was a marvel of alien engineering, a massive organic structure that seemed to pulse with life as Lyra and Zyrex were escorted aboard. The walls were smooth and translucent, with veins of bioluminescent light running through them, casting an eerie glow that shifted with the movements of the ship's inhabitants. Lyra felt a strange sensation under her feet, as if the floor itself was subtly shifting to accommodate her weight. She and Zyrex were led down a long corridor, flanked by Varelian soldiers whose bioluminescent patterns flickered in complex, unreadable sequences. Despite the outward calm, Lyra could sense the tension in the air. The Varelians were clearly wary of Zyrex, and they kept a close eye on him, their weapons at the ready. But Zyrex remained calm, walking beside her with a quiet confidence that helped to steady her own nerves. They were brought to a large chamber at the heart of the ship, where a Varelian council awaited them. The chamber was circular, with a high ceiling that arched above them like the inside of a massive shell. The walls were lined with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move, alive with energy. In the center of the room stood a raised platform, where 3 Varelian elders, their bioluminescent patterns more intricate and vibrant than those of the soldiers, observed Lyra and Zyrex with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The lead elder, taller and more imposing than the others, stepped forward. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted slowly, the colors deep and deliberate, indicating a high level of authority. It spoke in a melodic yet firm tone, and the translation device at Lyra's side converted the alien language into words she could understand. "We are the Varelian Council of Elders," the voice echoed through the chamber. "You, human child, have formed a bond with our creation, Zyrex, that defies our understanding. We wish to learn how this came to be." Lyra swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this moment was crucial. The Varelians were powerful and intelligent, but they were also unpredictable. She had to tread carefully if she wanted to protect Zyrex and herself. She glanced at Zyrex, who stood by her side, his eyes locked onto the Varelians, his posture tense but not aggressive. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward, meeting the lead elder's gaze with as much confidence as she could muster. "I don't fully understand it myself," Lyra admitted. "When I found Zyrex, I was alone, and so was he. We were both survivors in a place that had been abandoned. I didn't see him as just a weapon or a threat. I saw him as someone like me. Alone, afraid, but with the potential to be more." The Varelian elder's pattern shifted, indicating a thoughtful pause. "Our creation, Zyrex, was designed for a singular purpose, to hunt, to eliminate threats. It was not meant to form bonds, especially not with a human. And yet you have achieved what we believed impossible. This connection between you and Zyrex is unprecedented." Lyra nodded, her mind racing to find the right words. "I think maybe it's because I didn't treat him like a weapon. I treated him like a friend. I trusted him and he trusted me in return. We found a way to survive together, and that bond became stronger than anything else." The elder regarded her with a long, silent gaze, its bioluminescence fluctuating slowly. The other elders whispered among themselves in their alien tongue, their patterns flickering in rapid, intricate sequences. Finally, the lead elder spoke again. "This bond you speak of, it represents a potential we had not anticipated. If a human, a species we considered primitive, can form such a connection with our most advanced creation, then there is much we do not yet understand." Lyra felt a flicker of hope. They were listening, considering her words, but she knew they would need more than just explanations. They would need proof that this bond was beneficial, that it could be trusted. "Zyrex isn't just a tool or a weapon. Lyra continued, her voice steady. He's shown me that he's capable of more, of learning, of adapting, of choosing his own path. He's not just following orders, he's making decisions based on our bond, on what he believes is right. And I think he can help you understand more about yourselves, about what you've created. The elders exchanged glances, their patterns flickering in complex sequences. Lyra could feel the weight of their deliberation, the gravity of the decision they were about to make. After what felt like an eternity, the lead elder turned to Lyra and Xerex once more. You speak of trust, of mutual understanding. These are concepts we value deeply, though we did not expect to find them in this context. The bond you have formed with Xerex has the potential to open new avenues of knowledge, not just for us, but for our entire species. The elder's patterns shifted to a deep, steady blue, a color Lyra had come to recognize as a sign of peace and resolution. We will not take Xerex from you, nor will we harm either of you. Instead, we propose an alliance. You and Xerex will remain together, and we will study your bond, learn from it, and perhaps even find ways to incorporate this understanding into our own society. Lyra's heart soared with relief and cautious optimism. They were offering them a chance, a way forward that didn't involve separation or conflict. But she also knew there would be conditions, expectations that she would need to meet. What do you want from us in return? She asked, her voice steady. The elder's patterns flickered again, this time with a hint of intrigue. We will require your cooperation in our studies, and in turn, we will ensure your safety and well-being. You will be free to explore our world, to learn from us as we learn from you. This is an opportunity for mutual growth, for both our species to gain something valuable from this unprecedented situation. Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of the agreement settling on her shoulders. It was a significant responsibility, but it was also a chance to protect Xerex and to discover more about the mysterious alien race that had created him. Agreed, she said finally. We'll do our best to help you understand this bond, as long as Xerex and I can stay together. The elder's pattern shifted to a bright shimmering green, a color that conveyed satisfaction and approval. Then it is settled. You will remain with us, and we will begin our studies immediately. Together we will explore the potential of this bond, and perhaps uncover new truths about both our species. As the council session ended, Lyra felt a wave of emotions, relief, anticipation, and a hint of fear for what lay ahead. She had secured a future for herself and Xerex, but it was a future filled with unknowns, challenges, and the constant scrutiny of the Varelians. The soldiers escorted them to a new part of the ship, a section designed for observation and study. The chambers here were more comfortable, with softer lighting and an atmosphere that felt almost inviting. It was clear that the Varelians intended to keep their end of the bargain, providing them with everything they needed. Over the following days and weeks, Lyra and Xerex were subjected to a series of tests and observations. The Varelians were meticulous in their studies, but they were also surprisingly respectful, ensuring that Lyra and Xerex were never harmed or pushed beyond their limits. They were given access to Varelian technology and information, allowing Lyra to learn more about the species that had once been shrouded in mystery. As time passed, a strange sort of routine developed. Lyra found herself growing accustomed to life aboard the Varelian ship, and to her surprise, she even began to form a tentative understanding with some of the Varelian scientists. They were fascinated by her insights into human emotions and relationships, concepts that were less emphasized in their own culture. Xerex, for his part, seemed to thrive under the new conditions. He learned quickly, adapting to the Varelian environment with ease, and his bond with Lyra only grew stronger. Together, they demonstrated the potential for cooperation between their species, a potential that had once seemed impossible. One day, after a particularly intense study session, the lead elder approached Lyra as she rested in their quarters. The elder's patterns were calm and steady, reflecting a deep sense of purpose. Lyra, the elder said, the translation device conveying a tone of respect, you and Xerex have shown us something extraordinary. This bond between you is not just a curiosity, it is a revelation. It has made us reconsider many of our assumptions about life, intelligence, and the potential for different species to connect on a deeper level. Lyra nodded, sensing that the elder was about to say something important. We believe that this bond has implications far beyond this ship, beyond even our two species, the elder continued. It suggests that there may be other forms of understanding, other alliances that could be forged between species who once saw each other only as threats or tools. This is the beginning of something new, and we wish for you and Zyrex to be at the forefront of this exploration. Lyra's heart raced with the enormity of what the Elder was proposing. They were being asked to lead, to become ambassadors of a new kind of relationship between species. It was an incredible honor, and an incredible responsibility. "What do you want us to do?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with awe. The Elder's patterns shifted to a soft, glowing white, a sign of hope and new beginnings. "We want you to travel with us, to other worlds, other species, and share the knowledge you have gained, to help us build new alliances, new understandings, and perhaps even a new way of coexisting in this galaxy. You and Zyrex have already shown that such a thing is possible. Now, we ask you to help us make it a reality." Lyra looked at Zyrex, who stood by her side, his gaze steady and full of the quiet strength that had carried them both through so much. She knew that this was the path they were meant to take. Together, they could make a difference, not just for themselves, but for others who might follow in their footsteps. With a deep breath, she turned back to the Elder. "We'll do it. We'll help you, and together we'll see just how far this bond can go." The Elder's patterns glowed brighter, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they were about to embark on. It was a journey filled with unknowns, with challenges and dangers. But it was also a journey filled with hope, a hope that perhaps, one day, the bond between a human girl and an alien predator could change the fate of entire worlds. And so, aboard the Varelian ship, Lyra and Zyrex prepared to leave Gaia 7 behind, ready to step into the vast, uncharted reaches of the galaxy. They were no longer just a girl and a predator. They were a team, a partnership that defied all expectations, and they were about to make their mark on a universe that had never seen anything like them before.